Everyone, welcome to the conversation today. So glad to have you here. My name is Ben Eubanks. I'm the host of HR Tech Talks. And today, as you can tell, we have Phenom. We're going to be talking about hiring, recruiting, talent acquisition. And so without any further ado, I'm going to bring on Andrew O'Brien to join me for the conversation. Welcome, Andrew.
Thank you, Ben. Great to be here.
Hey, I'm glad to have you. And it's good to be here as well. So as we're getting running for this, if you are listening in, again, as always, chime in. Let us know where you're chiming in from, where you're listening in from. I'm representing the southeastern U.S. Andrew, where are you again?
I'm outside Philadelphia, outside
Philadelphia.
Our headquarters in Ambler, Pennsylvania. Yep.
There you go. So we've got the East Coast mostly covered. There's some space in there, so someone else chimes in. Let us know where you are. Before we get too far into the discussion today. One of the things that you and I were just laughing about a little bit ago, I want to congratulate you. You have a little one at home, new, a couple months old. And so congratulations on that. You just came back from paternity leave recently and you dived right into this. So I'm excited that this is one of the first things you get to do. This may scar you forever, or it may steer you on, pump you up for what's next. So again, before we get too far in, Andrew, tell us about who you are. Tell us what you do.
Sure. I am on our product management team here at Phenom. I've been here for a little over 7 years in a couple of different capacities. Over the last 4 years, it's been in product. I've worked across our platform at different times. For the past couple of years, been focused on our chatbot, our AI chatbot automation platform. So happy to be here and discuss a lot of the things that we've been doing over the past 6 months. A lot's changed since COVID has come in. So, it's pretty exciting to talk to you and visit these different use cases.
Awesome. Well, I'm looking forward to that part of it for sure, because you mentioned AI, which if anybody's listened in for more than one episode, they know that's one of the areas I focus a lot on in our research, just understanding what's happening there. But also right now, as you said, like the COVID world is very different. I told someone the other day, I actually had done some research on talent acquisition in February and March of this year. Early March. And when COVID hit, we threw it all in the trash, basically, because it's a different world right now. People are facing different things. And so let's just start with that a little bit, if you don't mind. Sure. Let's talk about what you're hearing, what you guys are doing in terms of responding to customers, because I know the very last touch point that I had with the Phenom team was actually at I Am Phenom, the event, live event. It was so exciting, lots of fun. We were on the very cusp of the COVID shutdown, so that was the last live event I attended. But I had a chance to meet with a lot of amazing customers, got to hear some great stories and use cases. And again, that's probably adapted some in the last few months. So tell us what you're hearing.
Sure. As you mentioned, that was also the last live event I was at as well. So things really changed over a couple month period. I think there was a lot of uncertainty that we heard from our customers. But really the main theme that we heard was, a lot of the use cases that we were focused on was how do they attract new talent? How do they kind of nurture this new talent through the hiring life cycle? And then ideally, hopefully, becoming new employees. But what we really saw with companies is they're trying to adapt to their workforce. A lot of companies, unfortunately, had to lay off large numbers of their employees or had to furlough those employees. So what they were really focused on is not so much as attracting new talent, but retaining the talent they have, or at least kind of nurturing and staying in communication with either the employees they've had to furlough or their existing employees to kind of utilize them in different ways as the demands for their business changed as well. So the first couple of weeks, especially after we started working from home middle of March, and those through the end of March and April, what we were really focused on is listening to our customers. How are they adapting? How are they changing their businesses? And also, what were the most important use cases for us to focus on? So we really shifted our priorities from a lot of the candidate-facing experience to really focusing more of our efforts on, and we've had this employee experience product for several years now, but we really focused more on how can we better serve these new use cases. I mean, the world was turned on its head. So that was a big shift in how we kind of focused our resources was the employee experience. What do we need what can we do there to help our clients better nurture, better keep their employees in touch with the kind of rapidly changing environment that they were dealing with.
When you think about it, right, logically, the same way you're communicating with candidates, the same way you're interacting with them outside the company. It's a bigger population,
Sure.
but there's a lot of nuance, a lot of intricacy to that. And so shifting that focus inside, let's make sure we're using those same tools to communicate with our internal people. Are
Yep.
there, is it just general communications? Is it, hey, there might be new opportunities inside the business. There's some changes that are coming. We need to be aware of these things. And so there's a lot of different ways that you can shift that and support those people inside the business with those same tools that you're using to communicate and interact and work with those candidates in the past who've been outside. So it's an interesting kind of shift there.
Definitely. Yeah, I think kind of the first thing that we saw was these communication tools, particularly email and SMS. We're using those a lot to keep in touch with candidates, kind of walk them through the hiring process, answer any questions that they have. But those were then used for employees as well. So if you're trying to, we have a education company, for example, that has been one of our clients for several years now. And what they ended up using specifically our SMS feature for in our CRM was keeping their furloughed employees up to date on when they could expect their centers to reopen and any changes they're making in the centers as well. Obviously, you've seen a lot of businesses have taken kind of COVID precautions, changing the process of how kids come into school, how they're cleaning the facilities, how many of these kids are coming into school as well, drop off and pick up time. So, they were keeping these employees, they were keeping in touch with their employees through these methods as well. So I think that was really a big communication shift, was really turning those tools more internal to better keep their employees informed and up to date with the changes. And again, things were changing, from day to day too. So especially text is a great medium for quick responses. You get, I think the statistics are over 98% of all texts are read. So it's much easier to kind of get that in front and make sure that one of your employees has read that information well and is able to retain it.
Yes, absolutely. Well, one of the things I was thinking of is that text piece of it. I told someone recently that it seems like the truth is changing, especially earlier on. Right now, we're settled a little bit at least, but earlier on, it was like the truth is changing from day to day, week to week, and so this might be the marching plan. This might be what we've decided as a leadership team, and something changes, whether it's government decides something, or our local area decides something, or just we have an issue in our business, and suddenly we have to shift directions quickly. And so, like you said, it's sending out a bunch of emails. It's hard to keep up with that, but a text and those kinds of things can allow you to more quickly respond to it. What about the shift in terms of virtual hiring? Right? A lot of companies aren't having people come in anymore, aren't having them come to interview face to face. What are the things that you guys are seeing there around how some companies are hiring, especially in the middle of this? Certain industries have been booming. How are companies interacting with those candidates, and how has that changed?
Yeah, it's been very interesting to see, what different industries have really seen a slowdown and which have really seen a boom since this has begun. And a lot of the industries that are kind of focused on bringing goods to people have really done very well over the past 6 months here. So what we've seen, there's really two areas that have been impacted where you can't really have in-person interaction. The first is with interviewing. Rather than having these in-person interviews, you're focused more on having Zoom interviews, having phone interviews. Another feature that we introduced is on-demand video interviewing as well, where you can set up different questions that you want a candidate to answer, mostly as an assessment. And you can have them take that assessment at their leisure, and then recruiters, hiring managers, whoever is involved in the process can review that interview assessment later, and then move candidates on to the next step if required. The other piece of that is with events. So career fairs, university recruiting events are major sources of hiring new candidates, especially those coming out of school as well. And those have all gone digital. So we focused on creating webinars, creating these virtual events, virtual interviews that can be attached to that as well. That was really a big ask, and live chat tools as well. So the same idea as having an open chat room where candidates can come in and ask questions, recruiters can answer those questions. And going back to the point about employees that we were talking about a few minutes ago, you can also use those to field questions from employees as well. another thing that we did quickly and saw quickly is we were seeing a lot of questions from candidates, particularly coming to career sites, asking about the status of their application, asking about whether the company was even still hiring. Early on during COVID, when so much was uncertain, and we were able to kind of work with, use our chatbot technology and help our customers by kind of uploading some common FAQs that they could just easily personalize themselves to, give the proper information to their candidates and their employees for a lot of those commonly asked questions, and they can easily change those. Get them right in front of the candidate's employees through chatbot, and then as they're asking questions, to just use the bot to quickly automate those responses and direct them to communication channels that they want those candidates to take, or if they have a larger information page, you can easily direct those candidates to those. So, but yeah.
So that's, we talked about text a minute ago, right?
Yep.
How can that chatbot interact with people on the website, on text, on both other areas? Tell me about the different interaction points for candidates, sure. Because you and I know that, again, everybody seems to have one of these in their hand at all times, but sometimes it might be easier for certain candidates to use the website, or that may not just be there. So talk about how they can interact with that a little bit.
Definitely. So our bot is available on both of those channels, and those are the two main channels that we've seen our candidates particularly using across all of our clients. The kind of percentage of usage depends on the type of industry. We see a lot of frontline workers using the SMS. Using the SMS channel, they're not sitting in front of a computer all day. The SMS is the most convenient channel for them to use. So whether it's them trying to find a job, whether it's them trying to answer question or get an answer to a question, that's a great resource for them to use to quickly find that information. And rather than going through maybe a support channel or something like that, that information is right in front of them. And it's a question that gets asked all the time too. So rather than recruiters needing to constantly answer the same question over and over, they can be freed up, especially now, recruiters are doing so much more than they ever had before with not as many resources as they've had previously. So, if you can save some of that time and through automation, that's a big benefit. And then on the career site, we've seen some of our knowledge workers seeing those interactions occur more frequently on the career site. So yeah.
Interesting. All right. Awesome. I had that inkling that might be the kind of the breakdown is I don't want to say more professional because they're more professional people, but the more professional type positions and
sure.
occupations, you'd expect them to lean that direction a little bit.
Yep.
So one of the again, I don't know that it's the reality anymore. Maybe it is for some people, but for a long time prior to the whole COVID thing, my joke was I'd seen a company and talked to a couple different firms that were using chatbots, and they actually saw a spike in usage like Sunday night, and we joked about like that's because everybody realized that they're about to go to a job they hate and they're looking for other types of roles.
Oh yeah.
But that's the funny side, yes. But the reality of that is, what recruiter is sitting there at 9 o'clock on a Sunday night when candidate X realizes, oh gosh, I got to start back to work tomorrow, and I was going to look for that job this weekend, and it got away from me. And so recruiters, as you said, right, they're busier than ever. They're not working in those times, and so the chatbots enable them to have conversations, to connect with candidates, to answer their common questions, and to try to drive them hopefully to a human interaction if they're the right candidate. It enables that kind of scalability of that high touch, even though once you set it up, there doesn't have to be a human in the process talking and touching every single candidate in that. So I'm glad you mentioned the productivity piece a minute ago, because I've talked to several recruiters who are like, yes, right, we're not hiring as much, but we also don't have as big of a team, or we're trying to figure out, they've reallocated the recruiters to figuring out how to slot people inside the business because they're the experts at finding talent. And now they're trying to use that same insight, that same expertise to direct and put resources inside the business where they can redeploy them without having to lay them off or furlough them, as you mentioned earlier. So there's lots of things going on, lots of busyness going on for recruiters, even if companies aren't hiring in the moment. And we've seen some of those numbers start to come back. Fingers crossed. I'm hopeful about that.
Fingers crossed is right.
Yeah. But that's one of the interesting things that's been going on here is one of my good friends I've known for a long time as a recruiter, and someone asked him like, hey, you must be taking it easy right now. He's like, no, gosh, no. Like if only. Staying busy with things. So let's talk about some stories, some examples, if you don't mind. You talked about some of the big picture, what you're doing, right? You talked about how you're supporting customers broadly. Any stories or examples of customers and how they're kind of tackling this bigger challenge right now that you can kind of highlight and use? We can pull some ideas from.
Sure. I think one of the major things that we've seen, and you just mentioned it again, is this kind of resource crunch that a lot of organizations have seen. So we have a number of clients across the hospitality industry, across the healthcare industry, transportation, logistics industry, and they've all seen new problems crop up in the last 6 months since COVID lockdowns, but they're very different problems. Healthcare, obviously, they are looking for more workers than ever. They've been pretty much inundated in some ways, and then you have other healthcare organizations that may focus more on maybe elective procedures or something like that, where they've actually had to furlough or lay people off. So it's been a very kind of strange dynamic at times, where you look across industries, and some parts of the industry are hiring like crazy, and other parts are furloughing, laying people off like crazy. Hospitality industry, with people not traveling, people maybe not feeling comfortable staying away from home, they've taken a hit as well. But the logistics industry, we kind of mentioned some of those companies that have really been booming over the last 6 months with their business. They're also hiring like crazy. So it really is. We've really seen a lot of different unique use cases. I think, kind of particularly in maybe the hospitality industries or transportation industries that are not kind of logistics focused, that are more focused on, moving people to vacation or on business or things like that. What they've really seen is use cases for how do they utilize their existing employees to help them in kind of new areas of business that they're trying to promote, since they're kind of major existing areas of business aren't going to be viable for them for the next however long. And one of the things that we've worked with them on is how can these employees, these recruiters, help find essentially side projects, or they could be very large projects as well, but things that they can work on that are outside of the scope of their day-to-day job title. And we call those gigs, and those gigs can really be opened up by anyone across the company, looking for people that have skills maybe from previous experiences or even just outside of work. They have different skills that can be used within the company for maybe short periods of time, or even undefined periods of time, or even just alongside their existing job responsibilities too. So this was part of our employee experience, where you can post these gigs. Our AI is also able to recommend people that have, maybe they've worked in that area in the past. It could be a different team that's trying to hire a gig, but now they're working in it. They made a career change, but they have a lot of experience in a specific area, or you just maybe need some manual labor essentially, and someone that is willing to pitch in and work some extra hours. I think a lot of people are certainly open to that right now, given all the uncertainty. So that's really, with these industries that have been doing a lot of hiring, really focus there on helping them open up these kind of communication channels, on driving these new leads through. So a lot of that is business as usual, but in other industries that are trying to retool and reutilize their employees in different areas, a lot of these gig kind of employee discovery features, and really opening up these virtual and automated screening, assessment, and scheduling features. These have really been what we've been focused on, and help is what we see as being a big help for them.
I was going to say, that's when I asked that question, in my head I'm thinking like there's one truth, but like you just said, there's so many different, depending on where you are, what space you're in. And I have friends in the HR profession that are working for some healthcare organizations that are going crazy. Other ones are in folding potentially because of how everything's going right now. And one of the pieces you mentioned there, the gig piece, is one that really is intriguing. So there's a story that I heard years ago, and I still pull it up every time I get a chance because I love telling the story. There's a company that was going through some financial issues. They were struggling, and they had a hiring freeze on. So you couldn't bring in new people. If you had a job to do, you couldn't bring in anybody else from outside the business. And so they put together, they kind of hacked this together themselves. I call it their internal eBay for talent, which we're talking about here, the gigs piece, where they allow people inside the business to opt in, say, hey, I need this thing. And other people could raise their hand and say, that's the skill I have. I can do that for 10 hours a month. And they use that as a way just to get them through that tough time. That was the only thing just to solve this short-term crisis. And afterwards, I started to disband it. And the employees were actually like, hey, no, wait, let's keep this. We actually like this opportunity. It gives us a chance to raise our hand and say that's what our skills are, to identify those skills, to develop new capabilities. If I'm pretty good at this, but not amazing at it, I get to do some of those to practice and grow that skill set. Or get to leverage something I don't ever get to do in my normal day job, but I get a chance to do some of that in these other projects and things like that. So I think that's one of the really interesting things, and what's one of the fun pieces of getting to watch Phenom, because it's not just about hiring outside, it's about internal hiring, if you will, and finding ways to get people inside the business, whether it's for a full mobility, we're going to move you to a new role and we're going to hire you, inside the business to a new position, or it's just something like, we need you to do a short-term project because you have expertise here, you're our best X, whatever that job is, and we need you to leverage those skills, that strength, in this area where the business really needs you right now, because we're kind of all hands on deck. And from the employee side of that, to be that employee and someone says, hey, we need you. We want you. Right? Andrew, we need you because you're the best person at being on a live stream. Like, you're the best one. We need to tap into you, right? I don't know. Talk to my head. But we need that thing.
That's the idea.
How does it feel to be that person, right? To be in that employee that someone says, hey, we hired you, yes, but now we want you all over again. We're recreating that feeling of we appreciate you, we respect you, we want your strengths to help us in this moment of need. That's kind of a powerful moment for those people.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people might think of it as that's the company is really the one that's primarily benefiting from that. But there's a lot of, as you mentioned, there's a lot of incentive for employees to be looking for gigs and be interested in working on gigs as well. It's not just a monetary benefit, but you can add new skills. There's no better way to learn a new skill than on the job. There's really no replacement for any type of classroom learning that you can, but then there is by, gaining a skill by doing it, by working with customers, by working, across teams within a company and kind of picking up these different skills. And it's a great way to upskill employees to learn new things, to add it to their profile. So, they can continue to enrich, continue to learn, and especially all these new skills that are coming into the workplace. And there are millions of employees that are being kind of driven out of the workforce because they don't have this set of skills. So it's a great way for pretty much anyone, whether you're just entering the workforce, whether you've been in it for decades, to learn some of these vital new business skills that are out there.
Well, I'm always the research guy. That's where I always go, and I didn't that time. But the number one reason people leave organizations overall, it might change depending on population, but overall is because they don't see any opportunities for them to grow and develop and use their strengths. And so this directly addresses that issue by giving them a chance to raise their hand. We actually had a question come in. Do you mind if I pop it up on the screen? Let you tackle that one. So in terms of these gigs we're talking about, Christine said, how do we advertise these inside the business? How do we let people know about what those are and just find someone to do that? So
through our platform, there's really two main ways to advertise these gigs. We have this employee experience platform where employees can log in. They have profiles created. They can add their interests, their background, their skills to the profile. We're able to recommend, in the same way we recommend jobs on career sites, to recommend jobs to employees, we can recommend gigs as well. When you're creating a gig, you can add skills that are required for this particular gig. And that's one of the main ways that we recommend gigs to we recommend gigs to employees is through these skills, especially if employees want to learn new skills. It's a great way to kind of surface those. And the other way is through our CRM campaigns as well. So we talked about email, we talked about SMS at the beginning of this conversation. That's a great way to kind of keep employees engaged as to when new gigs surface that either fit their profile or might be something that isn't in their profile, but that discovery process of keeping that information in front of the employee. So regular updates, once a week, every couple weeks, or once a new gig is posted that matches their profile, whether those are done through email or SMS, you can really use those outbound channels as kind of a nurturing tactic to really keep that information in front of the employees and make sure that they know about it. So say those are probably the main ways for them to advertise those.
You said CRM earlier, and I let it slide, but you said it again. And so I know some people listening in might not know what that acronym means. Will you give us like the 60 seconds? This is what a CRM is. Here's what it does.
Absolutely. So a CRM is short for a candidate relationship management tool. And it is where your leads, your applicants, they all live. That's where your recruiters, your hiring managers can go in, review candidate profiles, manage jobs. You can open jobs through there. You can manage all the different leads that you have for a particular position, see what their status is in relation to a specific job or just their status in general across the company. And then, the other big piece of that is nurturing those leads as well. So creating email campaigns, creating SMS campaigns, entering candidates into lists and targeting those candidates. And, our AI's, infused throughout our CRM as well. So make candidate recommendations there for specific job openings. If you have a number of leads that, are great fits for a position you just opened, but, they haven't exactly applied for it, it's really a great way for recruiters to be proactive and reach out to those candidates and say, hey, we're interested in you for this position. It really becomes a two-way street rather than, an ATS where candidates are deluging it with applications and recruiters, only have a few seconds to spend on every single resume that comes through. It's more on the recruiters to go in and source. They can source candidates. We make it easy for recruiters to source candidates through our AI and personalized recommendations. And really it's a communication tool from there. It's keeping in touch with candidates, whether it's automated or whether you want it to be personal. You have that human touch, and you're having a conversation with the candidate.
Yes, perfect. Okay, awesome. That was so much more eloquent than I could have put it myself. And when you said ATS, I'm a sucker for good acronyms, and so ATS is the applicant tracking system for everybody who doesn't know the acronym, but it's now going to be known the applicant torture system going forward. Based on what you just shared. So yes, we called it the black hole for a long time. And a CRM is a way for you to really target and tailor your communications to specific populations of people. So instead of just saying to all your candidates, like, hey, here's an open job, you can tailor it to people who have certain characteristics, who've already applied for a job before. So they're probably open to receiving those applications and things like that. So there's different ways you can tailor that. All right, we are coming close to the end today. So Andrew, if someone wants to learn more about what Phenom is up to, more about what the team is developing over there, what's the best way to do that?
The best way is to visit our website, phenom.com. I also want to mention one other thing. Ben, you mentioned earlier about recruiters having working hours where they can be in contact with candidates. So we have our chatbot report that is available for download on our website as well. We kind of dive into some of the numbers around where chatbot interactions are highest. And one of the interesting things we saw was it's pretty consistent throughout the day of candidates visiting career sites and interacting with the chatbot. So you're basically looking at 2/3 of the day where a bot can automate a lot of the questions that are coming through when a recruiter may not be available, for example. So just wanted to highlight that as well. But phenom.com is our site. Please check us out.
Wonderful. Hey, I appreciate you joining me, Andrew. This has been, again, any chance I get to nerd out on talent acquisition, digging into what's happening, not just any time would be fun, but especially right now when things are shifting and changing and it's a different kind of experience out there. I'm thankful for what you and the team are doing for the employers you're serving, and just appreciate you for joining me today.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. Appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. To everybody else, thank you for hanging out with us for the conversation. We appreciate you and hope you'll join us next week on another HR Tech Talks. Thanks.